Shalom. First, first and foremost, I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kakadash. Double honors to the elders. I'm going to give a double honors to the elder apostles of GMS, in whom the truth resides. Peace and blessings be multiplied to you, Akim, that's out here preaching this truth for the risking of, in the risking of your lives, preaching this truth for the love of the gospel. And a double shalom to you, Akim, Akwath, that's out here listening and learning in silence and being blessed, whatever your house may find your hands to do. All right, this is Hashem YASHARAHLA. Um, Back again with another sit down on some history, man. Another myth, man, that needs dealt with. Um, it's a big myth that Jacob or Jake or so-called black people can't swim. Okay, which may be true. Okay, but it's not true to the circumstance that we don't like swimming. Um, the fact of the matter is, again, is, this devil, Esau, so-called white man, something that happened in the past, man, where they hindered us from learning how to swim. Okay, I have a few videos and I have some scriptures that I'm gonna get because me myself, I used to be scared of the water, but mind you, I was a kid, a small kid when Jaws came out, so I lived here. I grew up by the beach and grew up by Lake Michigan. So, the little scared thing was shit. You get by the beach and everybody would that oboe or that whatever instrument they use for that dun dun dun. Used to scare the shit out of you. So we used to play little jokes and stuff. So, but that has nothing to do with when you got to swimming pools. Okay, my brother, I had a big brother. Uh, he used to play the throwing in the pool, throwing in the water, and all that. And Jake's a jokester, man. Jake be playing all the time. So those various factors factored that I didn't get around to actually learning how to swim until later on in my life. And just the other day, I was just curious. I said, and I asked my son, and I raised him, and I just like, damn, I really didn't. I took him to the beach a lot, but I didn't really push him swimming. So I asked him the other day, I said, man, son, can you swim? And he was like, hell no. So it prompted me to ask one of the brothers in the camp, but I asked him, can he swim? He gave me the same response. And most jakes that you ask, can they swim? They'd be like, hell no. And that's a phobia. It's just a phobia that's in our, it's basically, it's been a privilege that we've been denied. Not that we don't know, we don't, um, and like I said, one of these videos, it'll explain more. Um, it's not that we don't want to swim. It's just that our culture always raised us, whatever family you were in, you know, most Jake's upbringing consists of Jake having to work all the time. Whether you didn't grow up with your father, you had to clean up the house, or you had brothers and sisters you had to take care of, you had to help around the house, whatever the case may be. The fact is that Jake didn't get access to be able to swim. Okay, all right. Let me get this first scripture. This is Acts 27:40. All right, because these are scriptural. Everybody didn't know how to swim, man, and you got different accounts in the scriptures where not much. I actually looked up the word swimming in the scriptures, and it's not much on it. Okay, but I'm gonna do the best I can. All right. This is Acts 27:40. He said, and when they had taken up the anchors, they committed themselves into the sea. All right. Now you gotta realize too. Also, Jake had to know how to swim. The apostles and the disciples had to. Most of them were fishermen. All right. And most of the accounts that you look at, and in the land that we dwelt in, was by seaside, sea coast, small sea coast, um, you know, um, not small lakes, ponds. For generations, our ancestors thrived off large bodies of water. We had to fish. You had to move goods back and forth. I think, and I'm not mistaken, I think, and we always say, man, the Spartans, they were Israelites. Okay, so they lived I think the Mediterranean Sea, somewhere up in there. I can't think of the name. Algean Sea. Okay. Um, Also, they had to depend on the water, man. You know. All right. He said, Acts 27:40. All right. He said, and when they had taken up the anchors, they committed themselves into the sea, and lo, and loosened the rudder bands, and hosed up the mainsail to the wind, and made towards shore, and falling into a place where two seas met, they ran the ship aground, and the forepart stuck fast, and the remaining unmovable, but the hinder part was broken with the violence of the waves. And the soldiers counseled was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim out and escape. All right, so it says any of them swim out. So some of them had to know how to swim. Verse 43. But the centurion, willing to save Paul, kept them from their purpose, and commanded that they which could swim could cast themselves first into the sea and get to land, and the rest some on boards and some on broken pieces of the ship, and so it came to pass that they escaped all safe to land. All right, so that's one account. Let me go to Matthew. All right, you probably know I'm going. 14:21. All right, and this is the famous. This is a famous account when Peter walked on water. Okay, this is Matthew 24. This is Matthew 14. I'm gonna start at 24. He said, "But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night, Yahushua went unto them walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. But straightway Yahushua spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid." And that's a big part with swimming too. That's what I had to overcome. Being afraid, because it's a funny feeling being submerged in water and your lungs is full of air, so it makes you buoyant. You're gonna float, but you're not used to it. So swimming is a condition. First of all, when they actually give you swimming lessons, they get you comfortable with the water before it becomes fun. You get comfortable with being in the water, man, because I used to have a problem with I don't want to say if that's convulsion. Well, really, what I would do is I would be submerged in water, and I could never catch my breath. I was always, I was always breathing hard. So I had to learn how to control my breathing in the water. So all right. Uh, this verse 28, he said, "And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be so, if it be thou, bid me to come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter saw, and when Peter was down, come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Yahushua. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid and began to sink. He cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Yahushua stretched forth his hand and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? Okay, doubted because he seen all the circumstances around him. Okay, and really that has nothing to do with swimming, but I'm just giving you accounts that our people were familiar with water. We had to be, like I said, I gave the analogy earlier. We grew up around uh, seacoast, so and a lot of people had, like I said, a lot of the disciples, man, they trades were fishermen. All right. Matter of fact, we can get this count right here. He said, and it came to pass. This is Luke 5:1, and it came to pass that as the people pressed upon him to hear the word of the power, he stood by the lake of Gerasene and saw two ships uh, uh, standing by the lake. All right, but the fishermen were gone out of them and were washing their nets. And he entered into one of the ships, which was Simon's, and prayed him that he would thrust out a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the people out of the ship. Okay. He said, now when they had left speaking, he said unto Simon, launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a draw. Okay, so he told him to launch out into the deep waters, man. A person that can't swim is not dealing with no water, no large bodies of water, man. Now, I've actually been out on a boat, which I thought it would be a cool thing to do because my friend, they had a boat, his family had a boat, and I was like, man, I would see it sitting in the driveway all the time. I'd be like, man, that's a big ass boat, man. When they launched that boat in the water, and that boat started going down Lake Michigan, and the further and further we got from the beach, I was like, the more it got out, the scared I got, and it must get in. Boats are buoyant, like I said, but they don't. They look big on land because the whole boat is out of the water. Most of that boat is down in that water, and then you put people on there, and it's like because the part that I thought it was close to the bottom of the water, and it's like, man, you feel like you sinking at all times, but it's not gonna sink. But you just think of all type of stuff because it's like this is all that's saving us out here. If this boat goes down, we are in the water. How we gonna get that all of these thoughts go through your head. So it's a scary feeling. It's a scary, man. That's why um, like I said, you have to be uh, familiar with water, familiar with being around it. Like I said, and I'm not saying this to say that I'm a pro swimmer or I'm still scared to go out on a boat. I'm not going where I can't see no land. That just ain't for me. That's another phobia too because our people was on the doing the transatlantic slave trade. We were on ships, and even if you use the water for some type of if our people use the water for to going to get food and doing a swim or whatever, they still can see the land. When you out on a ship and you look all around, you ain't nothing but water. That's a terrifying. That has to be a terrifying feeling, man. Okay, so let me give let me see. I had something else. Um, Let's see if this say. I know I got it in here. Okay. Okay. Now this is something else. Okay. We get Isaiah 4, 42 and 22. Okay. All right. Now I know this is concerning us being locked up, but I'm gonna read it and I'll commentate on it. This is Isaiah 42 and 22. He said, "But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are all for a prey, and none delivereth. for a spoil, and none saith restore. Okay, now how are we robbing the spoil, man? We're robbing spoils from our heritage, from our heritage, from our statute, laws, and commandments. So everything. So when you capture people, you everything that they know is done away with. All right, because that first generation is an old Gadite proverb. I heard this Gadite quote. He said, "When you capture a wolf, when you capture a wolf, and that wolf is always fighting to try to get out, or try to is trying to escape. But when that wolf have pups, those pups are raised up. They'll never try to leave the cage, and that's basically what happened to us. You know, our ancestors probably was always striving to try to escape. You know, they showed you in the movie Roots. You know what I'm saying? But when children have children, and then they born into captivity, they learn to love their oppressor, man. That's actually called Stockholm syndrome. Okay, so we've been pulled away from all of our all that we know of, or was even close to. You know, so being to learn how to swim, man, is like something wasn't um, second nature for us. It was like basically a privilege. You know, that's what Esau used it for. Okay. I'm gonna play a few of these videos, man, and I don't know if I'm gonna hit on scriptures, whatever the Spirit put on me. Hold on one second. All right, this first one is we actually get into the swimming until Jake is getting into swimming more and more, because this chick here is the first one that brought home gold. Let me play this one. It's a short video.
If you're still measuring homes by hand, you're probably spending hours wrestling with a tape measure and climbing.
This is Simone Manuel, and this is her new gold medal. The U.S. Olympic swimmer made history after winning the 100-meter freestyle. She's the first African-American woman to take gold in an individual swimming event. The 20-year-old Texas native swims for Stanford University, and sprint races are her thing. She helped her relay team win silver in the 4x100-meter freestyle earlier this week. After securing the gold, she told reporters, "I'm super glad with the fact that I can be an inspiration to others and hopefully diversify the sport. But at the same time, I would like there to be a day where there are more of us, and it's not Simone, the black swimmer." For Newsy, I'm Katie Link.
Okay, all right. So, hey, that's this one here. I'm gonna just play a little bit of it because it's a little longer, but the last one is really one I'm gonna play in its entirety.
African American swimmers. Well, during the Olympic swimming trials, seen here on NBC4, history was made. For the first time, two African-American women, Leah Neal and Simone Manuel, qualified for the same time compete in the Rio Games. The Stanford University swimmers, they're setting an example for young African-American swimmers all across the country, including a pair of swimmers in the New Albany area. NBC4's Candace Lee sat down with the Johnson siblings to talk about the changing face of competitive swimming. Candace?
Yeah, you know, Mike, Jada and Trey Johnson have been swimming for several years. I've been following them on Facebook because I'm good friends with their mother. Both are inspired by African Americans who have found success in the pool. And tonight, both offer their perspective on what the Neal and Manuel qualifications mean to young swimmers of color. Jada and Trey Johnson, both swimmers at New Albany High School, have left a weekend at the pool with plenty of swag.
I swim mainly freestyle events, 50, 100, and 200 free.
The brother and sister are excited to watch swimmers Leah Neal and Simone Manuel in Rio. The Stanford swim duo became the first two African-American women to qualify for the Olympic team at the same time.
It makes me feel like I can get there, and it makes me feel like there are people who are like me who can aspire to be at this level.
The success of Neal and Manuel is setting a new tone in competitive swimming for African Americans. Jada spends her summers in the pool with her club.
And you know, once Jake get into it, man, we're gonna dominate it, man. So you know, we late doing it, but this next video will show you why Jake is not really into swimming like that, because it's not nothing that, like I said earlier, it's not nothing that we. It's not because we don't. We were basically denied access. Okay.
team. Trey loves the butterfly and is focused on coaching younger swimmers. Both believe Neil and Manuel are giving black children a reason to get in the pool.
They want to be a baseball player. They want to be a football player. You don't see a lot of African Americans saying, I want to be a swimmer.
And just like Jackie Robinson in baseball, the total domination of the sport will take time. So for now, Jada and Trey, like most Americans, will be glued to the TV when Neil and Manuel take on the world in Rio.
I'm going to be making sure to watch their relays and their individual events.
I will probably expect more African Americans to be in the water in the future.
Now, Leah Neal didn't qualify for an individual event. She and Simone Manuel will compete as members of the 4x100 freestyle team. Manuel also qualified to swim the 50 freestyle at the Rio Games. Stereotype.
This is the video I was trying to get. Now this one is kind of lengthy. It's not real long, but I'm gonna play it to its entirety, man, so Jay can get an idea. This is why Esau is the culprit, man. Basically, that's what our apostles teach us, man. Everything is basically all the problems with so Babylon, aka America, is because of his unrighteous decrees, man. All right. Matter of fact, let me get there. I think I got that earlier. All right. He said, Isaiah 10:1. He said, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees and that right grievousness which they have prescribed. Okay. And in this next video, you're going to see what he has prescribed, man. He prescribed for Jake to have denied access to pools back in the late 1900s. The late 1900s, right? Well, I'm gonna play the video. It's self-explanatory.
You've probably heard the stereotype. Black people just can't swim. For generations, this has been an all too familiar tale within the black community. But here's something you may not know. Black children are drowning at 3 times the rate of white children, and years of racial segregation in America's pools may be to blame. In the United States, 64% of black children can't swim.
My son, Genesis Holmes, was only 13 years old. He wanted to swim with his friends.
In May 2014, police reported to a scene near a local high school in the small town of Hollywood, South Carolina. An unidentified teen was found floating in a pond off Highway 162. Dive and rescue teams scoured the area and recovered the body of Genesis Holmes.
Genesis didn't make it back out because Genesis didn't know how to swim. All our life, most of us, honestly, we was told to stay from the water. It's like a family tradition that they had from generation to the next generation. So I taught my children to stay away from water. Genesis had so much plans. He had great plans for his life.
Genesis's death is reflective of a darker trend of accidental drownings across the country. In the U.S., more than 10 people die from drowning each day. 1 in 5 of those deaths are children between the ages of 1 and 14. And most of those deaths are disproportionately black. So why is this happening? And why are black children drowning at such high rates? We tapped University of Montana history professor Jeff Wiltsey to talk about racism and the social history that shaped America's first public pools.
The very first public pools were located exclusively in large northeastern cities, Philadelphia, Boston, New York. They were all in poor neighborhoods, what we'd call urban slums.
For the poor children of New York, $1 million swimming pool, a luxury summer resort for the kids of the sweltering tenements and slums on East Side,
where poor and working class immigrants, native-born African Americans lived. And that's the population that they were intended to serve. Sort of dirty working class boys and young men would plunge into the pool and then clean themselves in the water of the pool. It was essentially served as a large bathtub.
That's right. The first public pools were not only racially inclusive, but they served as bathhouses for the poor, who often swam nude. For this reason, public pools originally prohibited men and women from swimming together. But after World War I, that all changed. After the war, Americans were earning more and working less. To give you a sense, the average work week went from 59 hours before the war to 51 hours after the war. This gave Americans a lot more time to enjoy leisure activities like swimming, and eventually opened the door for new mixed-gender pools.
And it's the point at which a city gender integrates, allows males and females to use the same pool at the same time that cities and white swimmers impose racial segregation. In a nutshell, the basic reason was, white public officials and white swimmers would not allow black men to interact with white women at such an intimate public space.
Racial discrimination became normalized and institutionalized across the country. From the north to the south, white-only pools became hallmarks for racial exclusion, and they would stay that way until the 60s. Southern cities used Jim Crow laws to enforce segregation in pools and other public spaces, while northern cities used intimidation and violence to keep blacks out. All the while, local chapters of the NAACP worked to file lawsuits against neighborhood pools and beaches that denied blacks access. Pools went from being places for leisure to racial battlegrounds, and it would take 2 protests in Florida to change that.
What are you prepared to do now, Dr. King? Well, we will stand here and protest what we feel is a blatant injustice.
On June 11, 1964, police arrested Dr. Martin Luther King and more than a dozen religious leaders after they staged a protest against racial segregation at the Monson Motor Lodge in St. Augustine, Florida. His arrest inspired others to act. Less than a week later, 16 rabbis joined a group of black and white protesters at the same hotel. As the rabbis prayed on the property, protesters jumped into a white-only pool to stage a swim-in. What happened next sent shockwaves across the country. That's the Motor Lodge hotel owner, James Bruck, pouring acid into the pool to get protesters out. Media reports of the story sparked enough outrage to gain the attention of then-President Lyndon B. Johnson. Some activists even say it influenced Johnson to sign the Civil Rights Act less than a month later.
All men are entitled to the blessings of liberty, yet millions are being deprived of those blessings, not because of their own failures, but because of the color of their skin.
The bill outlawed segregation based on race, color, religion, or sex, a notion that until that point was common practice throughout most of the country. And while several places across the U.S. had already begun desegregating public spaces, by the time the Civil Rights Act was passed, it was too late. After World War II, white Americans left cities for the suburbs in pursuit of the highly commercialized American dream. You know the whole car, white picket fence, home in the suburbs. Now you might be thinking, what does white flight have to do with black people swimming? Well, the answer is a lot. Once white Americans left for the suburbs, cities throughout the country stopped investing in the upkeep of their public pools. So when blacks and other minorities finally regained access after the Civil Rights Act, most of them had already closed.
Tens of thousands of private club pools developed in suburban communities, and what that enables suburban communities to do, members to do, is to control who has access to those pools. and who they determined would not have access to those pools and the swim lessons that occurred at those pools.
Today, gentrification is the driving force behind modern-day pool segregation. So in other words, it isn't so much your race that determines your likelihood of being able to swim, but your class. For example, affluent suburban communities are far more likely to have access to pools than their city counterparts. Look at the numbers, and you can see why. There are more than 10 million residential pools compared to the 300,000 public pools across the country. On top of that, public pools are disappearing. Since 2009, more than 1,800 public pools have closed across the country. Some rural towns like Hollywood, South Carolina, where Genesis Holmes lived, never even opened one.
Genesis cried out for help because he didn't know how to swim. If me and my husband had gave him swim lesson, Genesis would have made it out.
After Genesis's death, Jennifer Holmes couldn't stop thinking about the what-ifs. What if she had learned how to swim? What if Genesis had swim lessons? That's when she came up with an idea.
Being that I lost our baby, I had to do something to where that I could let others know how important water safety is, that what we were taught is not good for us, and why it's important to learn how to swim, to help reduce drowning out in the rural area.
And she didn't stop there. Holmes became a lifeguard and raised more than $15,000 for the Genesis Project to bring swimming lessons to Black children in her small town. It wouldn't take long before the rest of the community noticed. After hearing about Genesis, the Charleston County Parks Foundation gave Holmes $3 million towards opening the town's first public pool.
Okay, all right, that's about it. The rest is just the sentimental shit. But anyway, you get the point. Again, Esau is the culprit, man. By him denying Jake access to pools and through their politics, man. Like again, I read in Isaiah 10, his unrighteous decrees, he denied Jake access. And like I said, anything that he can find a way to kill Jake, he's gonna implicate it. He's gonna implement it. At the beginning of this video, you heard the lady commentate that drowning is like a big part of Jake being drowning is a big part of Jake being put to dying. So all right, man, that's it. I hope that Lake was edified. I want to give our praises to Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shah Bashim, Kakadash. Double honors to the elder apostles who's worthy of double honors. Peace and blessings to you, Akim, that's out here preaching this truth, risking your lives for the love of the gospel. And you, Aquath, that's out here learning in silence and being blessed, whatever Yahweh Shah may find your hands to do. All right, Shalom.